Hi, in this video, I want to discuss the profit maximizing condition for both monopolies or firms with a downward sloping demand curve, let's just say monopolies, and perfectly competitive firms. So we will learn why the profit max condition is where MC equals MR for both of these cases. All right, so let's hide this one to just keep it simple. So for now, quantity where MC equals MR. Let's revise what each of these mean. So bear with me 1 second. Okay, so here I have the definition of MR, the addition to revenue from an extra unit produced, MC, the addition to total costs from an extra unit produced, and therefore when we take MR minus MC, we're doing the difference between the revenue that they generate from that extra unit minus the costs for that extra unit. So overall, we get the addition to total profit from an extra unit. So let's look at this diagram. Let's pick a quantity. Let's call it Q1. At Q1, we have the addition to revenue equal to here. I'm just going to put a number as an example of 10, but there's no real significance at that. I'm just using that as an example. The costs for this particular unit have been this much, which to me looks maybe more like a 3. Therefore, the marginal profit is the difference between this, which is the difference between 10 and 3, which is 7. And what this 7 means is that total profit is increasing by 7. So let's say that my total profit before Q1 was 100. By the time that I get to Q1, my total profit has increased by 7, and it's now 107. So you can see even this next quantity, let's call it Q2, it still adds more to revenue than it adds to the costs. For example, the costs, maybe it's adding, I don't know, let's call this a 2, and then let's call this a 7. So it's adding a 5 overall to total profit. That's approximately adding like a 5 in this diagram, which is not super great. So the total profit would then be 107, which was the previous top profit. Now we're adding 5. So we have 102 total profit. So the curious thing to note is that in this region, the marginal profit is actually falling, right? Before I was adding 7 to profit, but now I'm adding less. I'm adding 5 to profit. And I think kind of as this area gets more, this region gets smaller and smaller, the marginal profit is shrinking and shrinking, but that still means that total profit is going up. So if this were adding, let's say 4, and this was adding more like 2, total profit here is 4 higher than it was before, so it's 116. Total profit is now here 2 higher than it was before, so it's 118. So long story short, you want to produce any time when your marginal revenue is higher than your marginal costs. So the key takeaway is total profit will increase, and it's good. If you're a profit maximizer, you want to produce whenever you can increase total profits. So total profit will increase if your marginal revenue is greater than your marginal costs. Even if you can only add like 1 or 0.5, you still should produce it. It's more profit than you had before. So what we can conclude here is if you're ever in this region where your marginal revenue is higher than your marginal cost, you're going to say, yes, I want to produce this, I want to produce this, I want to produce this, and you're going to keep saying yes until that's no longer the case. So total profit would increase if MR is greater than MC, meaning that firms will expand production when MR is greater than MC. They're not going to stay stagnant there. They're going to keep increasing output. So let's look at the reverse. Let's say that now we are operating over, well, that's too far ahead. Let's say over here, let's call this Q3. Here we have the opposite scenario where the costs are really, really high. And that's because, remember, we have diminishing marginal returns in the short term. So it's really expensive to produce high amounts of units as our variable resources don't have enough of the fixed resources. So the costs here look around 9. And the marginal revenue is now a negative number. My scale is not so good, but it looks like -4. So you've lost 4 in revenue and you've had to pay 9 in costs. So overall, your marginal profit has been -13. That doesn't mean that your total profit is negative. Let's imagine that your total profit before here was, I don't know what this would be, 103. Then by producing this unit, we're now reducing it by 13. So our total profit is now 90. Therefore, our total profit could still be high, but it's not as high as it would be if we had avoided producing this unit. So the next thing we learn is that total profit will fall. I'm going to really make it clear, but it's not necessarily negative. That's the mistake that people tend to make. If MC is greater than MR. And the takeaway from this is that firms will contract production when MC is greater than MR. They're going to be kind of allergic to this and say, no, no way I'm producing this. This is decreasing my profits. So whenever they find themselves in a situation like that, which they do find themselves everywhere along here, you see that the costs are significantly higher than the marginal revenue. And that's the case all the way even up to here. They will avoid producing all of these units until that's no longer the case. So this gets us back to this Q star. Q star is kind of this stable outcome where the firms aren't rushing to produce more because they have more revenue than costs, but the firms aren't rushing to produce less because they have more costs and revenue. So the equilibrium kind of tends towards Q star. And it's maximizing their profits. They've gained all the profit, I can't speak. They've gained all the possible addition to profits where the marginal revenue was greater than marginal costs, but they've not decreased their total profits when producing any unit where the cost was higher than the revenue for that unit. So Q star is where MC equals MR. We've exploited all possible benefits of MR is greater than MC, but we have not faced any of the costs of marginal cost is greater than MR. In this case, we have captured all possible increase in total profit, and as a result, the total profit is maximized. Okay, so that kind of leads us back to the profit maximizing condition, as I said here at the start, is at the quantity where MR equals MC or MC equals MR. You could say it that way around or the other way around. Doesn't really matter. Anything else won't be stable. The equilibrium that will be reached is where MC equals MR. That's going to be the case even when the firm is in perfect competition. So bear with me a couple of seconds and we will look at perfect competition. So here I have the perfect competition diagram just for the firm. And what we learned in the last example is that depending on where your MR and your MC is, you want to increase or decrease production to maximize your profits. So notice that all the quantity from 0 to Q star, all of these quantities, I know the MC is not far enough, but will generally be adding more to revenue than the costs for those units. As we said, it doesn't matter that the marginal profit is decreasing. What matters is that the marginal revenue is still higher than the marginal costs, meaning that the total profit is still going up in this region, even though these marginal profits are smaller than they were over here. Okay, so the conclusion is in perfect competition, you would still have the same behavior where perfect competition firms will try and expand production when they are over here because they could have a total profit increase. And then in this other region here, you have the opposite effect. You have scenario 2, where quantity Q star to infinity have marginal costs greater than marginal revenue. Cost greater than revenue. So this is a bad situation. Total profit is falling. And as a result, you would stabilize at Q star, and Q star becomes the outcome that maximizes your profit. So Q star maximizes profit because all units that have marginal revenue greater than marginal cost have been produced, increasing total profit, but none that have marginal cost greater than marginal revenue, which would decrease profit. You've captured all the possible increases in total profit. Okay, so hopefully that is a nice introduction to the profit maximizing condition, why we say the quantity where MC equals MR maximizes profits. You're capturing all the possible increases in total profit, and you're not going as far as starting to decrease your profit based on the shape of the MC curves. I think, yeah, the underlying assumptions is that your MC curve looks like this. It's this upward line, and your MR curve is either like that or either like that. But those are like more advanced details that are probably not too important to go through right now. But if you do have questions, please leave them in the comment. And thank you very much for watching this video.